Well, good evening, and thank you for being here. Welcome to the Norwalk Community Cannabis Forum. I also know we have people joining us virtually, so I want to welcome them as well. Before I get started with some welcoming remarks, I want to introduce the panel that will be speaking with you this evening and answering any of the questions you may have. We have Steve Kleppen, the Director of Planning and Zoning for the City of Norwalk. Ryan Harold, District Safety and Security Supervisor of Operations at Norwalk Public Schools. Margaret Watt, Prevention Director at Positive Directions and Co-Chair of the Norwalk Partnership. Denique Wiedema Lewis, I'll try, Behavioral Health Program Manager at the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services in the Prevention and Health Promotion Division, who formerly worked at Norwalk Acts and who we are happy to see back in Norwalk. Michael Lafrida, the Chief Operating Officer for Shangri-La, a dispensary, which will be opening later this year. Dennis So, the Director of Retail Operations at Fine Fettle, a dispensary opening up in Norwalk in early 2024, and Norwalk Police Chief Jim Walsh. So why are we here today? Well, as you know, back in 2021, the state of Connecticut passed legislation legalizing cannabis in the state and allowed municipalities to choose whether they would permit retail sales in their communities. Last year, the Common Council voted to permit sale and cultivation of the use of cannabis in the city of Norwalk. In advance of the cannabis establishments opening later this year and early next year, we are working together to put together all the best safety measures that we possibly can. I can tell you that the city of Norwalk, under the guidelines of the Department of Consumer Protection, is doing this in a very thoughtful way. We know there are going to be some concerns that people have. There are going to be some questions. We want to assure you that we will be making sure that everything is done according to state statute, making sure that the retail establishments are conducting their business in a responsible way, not selling to underage people. We will be inspecting each facility to make sure, again, that they are conducting their business in a responsible way. So as a community, we're working very closely together to promote safe and responsible cannabis use, to educate our youth about the risks of cannabis and more. So having said that, I will let the panel start their meeting, start their presentation.
Good evening. My name is Steve Kleppen. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director with the city. Just to give you a little background of my involvement with the process when the cannabis legislation was enacted, there was impetus put on the city to, decide what they wanted to do. So I worked with and my staff. Is it quiet? Too quiet? Sure. Is that better? Better. Okay. So my department worked with the city government and the Planning and Zoning Commission on basically adopting the rules and regulations about where the establishments could go, what types of facilities we wanted to see in the city, where they could go, how they operated, the rules and so forth. So that was kind of a probably 6-month process. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission then took the baton from there. We had 3 applicants that were approved and 3 that, we're probably going to open, 1 later this year, maybe 2 sometime in 2024 would be my guess.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Harold. I'm the Safety and Security Supervisor for Norwalk Public Schools. And inevitably, obviously, the school system has a large role to play in the prevention, education, and some of the handling of our young people using cannabis. As I mentioned before, prevention, education, but we do have to handle it. It is in some of our schools. So we play a major role in supporting our young people to, if they make the decision to use cannabis at the legal age, making sure they're doing it responsibly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Margaret Watt. I'm the Prevention Director of Positive Directions, a local nonprofit, and I'm here in my capacity as one of the leadership team of the Norwalk Partnership, also known as TNP. I'm going to talk a little more than you guys. They told us we could have 3 to 5 minutes. The Norwalk Partnership is a coalition of all kinds of stakeholders. We have teenagers, we have parents, we have businesses, we have the city, the schools, nonprofits working together to prevent underage substance use and promote youth mental wellness. And we have an information table out there so you can pick up information about us or join us. But our work involves everything from conducting youth surveys to providing trainings. So when we talk about prevention and education, we do work with kids. We have kids educating other kids. We educate parents, health teachers in the schools. We create awareness. We create supports like the Teen Nights Out and the Norwalk for Mental Health Initiative. We reduce access by young people, and we've done a lot of public policy work at the state and local level to try to protect the public health. So in terms of cannabis in particular, our youth surveys in the last 2 years, 2021, 2022, showed that Norwalk youth are really using cannabis at extremely low levels, and we want to keep it that way. So we're really happy to have these partnerships with the community and with the folks at the table. It was a pleasure to meet the folks from Shangri-La and Fine Fettle earlier and talk about how we can work together to make sure that all our businesses are responsible, that, we have had vape shops, smoke shops in town that have been bad actors, and we've been active as a city in looking at how we can address that issue. But so we want to work with the retailers, but we also want to work with the public. So for parents who are listening tonight, just a few things that we want to make sure you know is that our research says that kids and parents think cannabis is the least dangerous substance that you can use as a teen, but that's not the case. We know a lot more than like when I was in high school health class, right? So things that parents should know and be talking to their kids about. Cannabis is addictive. Cannabis can cause up to an 8-point IQ loss when teens are using it several times a week. These are things to really think about as a parent. Have you talked to your kids about this? We have information out there in English and Spanish. How can you educate your kids? How can you protect them from edibles, which has been an issue in the schools and in the hospitals? And just everyone should be aware that in the states where cannabis is commercialized, there has been a 25% increase in teen addiction to cannabis. And that's why all of us really have a role to play, because when people are aware of the risks, when parents and other youth are saying, we shouldn't do this at this age, then we can reduce that risk. So I want to cite that the library is hosting a talk in November, and the NPS Family Center I brought the wrong one, is also hosting a talk in November for parents to get educated, answer your questions, and know how you can keep your kids safe. And at the talk at the library, we're going to talk about responsible adult use, because for adults who are using marijuana, it's totally legal, but there's things you should know as well. Thanks.
All right, so my name is Danique Bedema-Lewis. I work within the Prevention and Health Promotion Division at the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. It's so nice to be back in Norwalk. So a little bit about our division itself. So we are charged with providing statewide services to support underage substance use. And within my role within the division, I'm charged with setting up statewide and regional infrastructure to support local efforts to specifically prevent underage cannabis use. So looking at statewide priorities based on policy, currently we're looking at how do we build retail education, how do we support our statewide campaign, which I'll talk more about, continuous data collection, how do we ensure that communities are equipped with the training and technical assistance to support local coalition efforts. We support over 150 coalitions across Connecticut, including the Norwalk Partnership as part of that work, in addition to working with our other state partners and appointed committees. So I want to just talk a little bit about the Be in the Know campaign. So that is our statewide cannabis campaign. You can find it at beintheknowct.org. And this is a website that can provide the public with information about the laws, the effects of cannabis, resources to help mitigate any potential harmful effects for adult use cannabis use. And that this campaign is also designed to reach parents, young people, trusted adults, pregnant and breastfeeding people, as well as just the general public. So we want to ensure that the messaging that's going out to the communities really is able to be tailored to specific populations. And that we want to ensure that it's easy to understand and clear information on what our existing state laws are, information around safe storage. I have one of our lock bags, so that is also a part of our campaign, as well as community outreach that's going along with it. Preventing driving under the influence, and then other health risks. So as far as DEMIS and our state partners are concerned, we continue to ensure that adults are using as responsibly as possible and that are equipped with the information needed to make those informed decisions, as well as preventing underage cannabis use.
Good evening, I'm Mike LaFrida, Chief Operating Officer for Shangri-La Dispensaries. We'll be opening our first dispensary in Connecticut here in Norwalk, probably beginning of December. And again, I'm excited to be here to meet the community, meet all the members here, and do our part to ensure we're supporting all of their causes.
Hey there, Norwalk community. My name is Dennis So, and before you begin wondering, I know I look young, but I've been in the healthcare setting for probably longer than you might think. I graduated from UConn in 2009, the School of Pharmacy, so I have a doctor in pharmacy degree. I started off at Walgreens, working at my retail locations across the state, from opening new stores to management, and most recently in specialty medication. I worked at a community health center for Walgreens in Meriden. Fast forward to 2019, I was intrigued by an introduction from a friend to get into the cannabis world, in the medical cannabis world in Connecticut. And so I joined Fine Fettle. We opened up our first store in Willimantic in 2019. A couple months later, we opened up in Newington, and now we have a location in Stamford and in Manchester as well. Right now, I'm currently in a retail operations position, overseeing all the branches for Fine Fettle. And I often joke about the dog years in cannabis. It feels like 1 year in this industry equals 3 years anywhere else. It's because the cannabis industry is ever evolving. There's constant changes with the rules and regulations. There's new emerging markets, all positive changes, but it's a lot to keep up with. So I may look young, but I'm practically ancient at this point, if you consider cannabis years. So, you know, we're a dispensary, but we're more than just about dispensing a product. We're about shaping an experience when folks come to see us. You know, it's one thing to dispense a product, but it's another to provide a product that offers solutions for many. And many people who come to see us may have debilitating conditions. They may have illnesses or symptoms that they're, you know, relying on cannabis to give them relief. So at Fine Fettle, we really genuinely believe in the education and expertise of our staff to provide the best information as possible when customers and patients are coming to visit us. We truly believe in that. It's embedded in our core values. I know there's probably concerns about safety, and I hear you on that. I genuinely believe that in this regulated market, that we can offer a safe and well-tested product that's well regulated within the state laws. You know, every person that sets foot in our dispensary is ID'd, no matter how you look or what age you might be. All our products are kept in tamper-proof, child-resistant packaging, and even the labeling is muted, where it's black and white labeling, so it's unattractive to children. But beyond those protocols, we're really excited to be in the space to offer an atmosphere where folks could come find products that can help them with their ailments and do it in a safe and responsible manner. So I appreciate you guys having me here today. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Chief James Walsh from Norwalk Police Department. Local law enforcement has many responsibilities in regards to the legalization of cannabis and its retail sales. The first is review it with and in collaboration with planning and zoning to make sure that the proposed retail establishments comply with state law in regards to their vault design, in regards to their security systems, in regards to their video systems, and that the retention systems, that they have a safe tamper-proof building for burglar resistant and to prevent other crimes and robberies from occurring. Our second role is the education and training of the officers. In the past few years, with the evolution of marijuana laws, it's always changing year by year. So every single year, we're always updating the officers' training manuals with all the updated cannabis laws in regards to possession and weights and such. Thirdly is assuring compliance moving forward in regards to sales and possession to assure that they're within Connecticut state laws. And to that point, in regards to DUI enforcement, the Norwalk Police Department has 3 certified drug recognition experts. And some of them are actually trainers, and we train other officers throughout the state of Connecticut how to be DREs to enforce DUI if you're smoking and driving a car. And fourthly is identifying bad actors who are selling marijuana out of smoke shops. We've been successful in identifying several retail establishments through vape shops and smoke shops in the city of Norwalk engaged in illegal sales of marijuana over the counter, and we've made quite a few arrests with the execution of search warrants. Thank you.
So if anybody wishes to ask a question or make a comment, we have a microphone set up in the middle here. You can just come up, just give us your name, and I'll do my best to filter it to the correct party to answer your question. If anybody who's attending virtually has a question, you can use the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen. And maybe if we get enough folks, we'll alternate in person first virtually. So, but if anybody wants to come up or has a question, comment, please do so. I do have some questions we received, but if obviously we want to maximize your time, so please, sir, if you want to go ahead, pop up.
Yes, my name is Larry Katz. I'm a lifelong resident of Norwalk, and I had the unfortunate of losing my stepson to a drug overdose. He started with marijuana in high school. I got addicted to marijuana, and later on went to college and got involved with trying snorting heroin. And I'm going back 25 years ago. And we started an organization called Courage to Speak. And we've been in the school system for the last 20-something years, teaching children about the dangers of drugs, especially marijuana. And we're getting questions right now of how come they're legalizing marijuana? It must be okay to smoke it. I don't really have the answer to that because over the years, we've been telling they're more susceptible to addiction at a young age. I just want to point out that I'm on a rehabilitation center, Connecticut Counseling. We have 5 centers in Connecticut dealing with a heroin overdose, heroin addiction. And I was speaking with the director today, and he mentioned that the majority of people in treatment today, the vast majority started with marijuana and alcohol. He did indicate that all people who do marijuana doesn't necessarily mean they become addicted. I have a master's in nutrition, and one thing I learned is everyone is different. And so what works for one may not work for the other. My main concern is the young people in our town, because young people don't think about their judgments. It's been shown that that's why we made the laws 21 and older for drinking, and now for marijuana use. However, their brains aren't really fully developed to 25. The only industry that knows that is the car rental industry. You have to be 25 years of age to rent a car. And that's because they're still making bad decisions up to the age of 25. So, and as far as deterrent, I think we need stronger laws and give the police the opportunity to apply these laws. So if somebody breaks the law, an establishment breaks the law, once they get a fine and so forth, second time maybe a fine, the third time they should close them up. And because it's no good for the community, it's no good for the people in the community. Thank you.
Did anybody on the panel want to respond to that, Ryan or Margaret or?
Hello, Nicole Hampton. I am a parent in Norwalk, Connecticut. I have a couple quick questions. One before the mayor leaves. Where is the public consumption marijuana site going to be in the city of Norwalk? Have you guys picked a spot yet?
Well, Art Space Park, West Ave.
Okay,
That was the Art Space Park, if you couldn't hear it.
okay. And also for you guys keep saying your dispensaries. Are you requiring medical marijuana cards? Isn't that what makes a dispensary? Like, aren't you a cash cannabis retail store? Because a dispensary kind of dresses it up, so people think it's like regulated. But if you're not requiring people to have medical marijuana cards, you're a cash storefront, right?
Sure, so I could answer that. And
Okay.
In Connecticut, we did start off as a medical marijuana program
Mhm.
where you needed to be registered with the state of Connecticut in order to come see us. There were 36 or so qualifying conditions. Since January 10th, when we went live with adult use sales, now it's opened it up to those that are 21 and over.
Okay,
So you don't need to register with the state any longer. There are restrictions on what you can purchase, and there's potency caps on the products. You can't purchase more than 30% THC in flower products or
right.
more than 60% on non-flower products. There's a cap on how much you can purchase at a time as well.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just a quarter ounce, so 7 grams, whereas on the medical side, it's much larger.
Right.
So it is still restricted, it's still regulated through the Department of Consumer Protection.
But are you guys a dispensary or a cash storefront?
We're still considered a dispensary.
Okay,
Yes.
and same with Shangri-La?
Yes.
Okay, but it's not like the dispensary in Westport where they only take medical marijuana.
No, there's.
So
two
this is more like a
different lic-
hybrid?
There's two different licenses Connecticut issued,
Right,
the hybrid and the non-hybrid. The non-hybrid is for the. adult
cash
use.
storefronts.
You can call it a cash storefront, but it's still considered a dispensary. We still have to follow all state
Huh.
regulations along with the local municipalities.
Okay.
And again, I believe he mentioned it. Everybody that comes through the doors is ID'd.
Oh, yeah, of
So,
course.
Again, anybody under 21 is going to be turned around at the door.
Of course.
immediately.
Right. And then lastly, about the prevention, I know you even mentioned it, the youth, of course, is like #1 priority. So is the city or any of you guys providing any funding for prevention? Because the bill says there's no funding until year 3, which would be next year, if funds are available. So do you know if the city or any of you guys will be providing any funding for prevention for our youth? Because we're all talking about it, but
It's
who's
something
paying
for
for
us
it?
at Shangri-La, we definitely will talk about internally, and come up with a solution or some sort of way to support that cause.
That would be awesome. As a member of the local prevention council, I think that's amazing, and we would love to work with you on that. Thank you.
Great. Hi, good afternoon, or good evening. Lamont Daniels, Chief of Community Services for the City of Norwalk. So part of the legislation, there is a 3% sales tax that will go directly to the city. And the state has identified how that funding can be used. And for those that are watching, those in the room, the funding can be used for educational programs on youth employment, training programs specifically for Norwalk residents. The second one is services for individuals living in the municipality who was released from Department of Corrections, and then also mental health and addiction services. So about a year ago, the city of Norwalk has put forth a plan that was approved by Common Council. So once those funds come in, we look forward to allocating those funds to the great nonprofits in the community to get those resources out to serve our constituents and to serve our residents. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yep.
Hello. I'd like to ask you all a question, really. Could you share a little bit about who's going to staff your locations? Because you have incredible credentials and certainly you're a longstanding company that is in this particular industry. But when you get to West Street and you're going to hire people on West Street, a lot of different things could happen that way. Can you share a little bit about your hiring process? Who will actually be there? Because it won't be either of you, right? So I'm curious to how that process is for your companies.
Sure. Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. We do pride ourselves on hiring locally and diversely. For Fine Federal, I am actually part of that hiring process as well too. So we do have a 3-step screening process where we do phone screens, we do interviews, and then second interviews as well. When Connecticut started with the medical marijuana program, they required technicians to have a prior pharmacy technician license in order to work in a dispensary. So we still have that requirement in our medical facilities for adult use. We're not necessarily asked to hire for that sort of requirement, but we do look for that type of experience. So people in healthcare settings, people who worked in pharmacies in the retail setting especially, have the experience, because a lot of what we do in the dispensaries is mirrored in the retail pharmacy world as well. Hence why there's pharmacists behind the counters in our medical stores. So yes, I believe hiring is a really important thing, training our staff and making sure that they're well educated and understand the information that they're sharing with their customers are accurate and well informed.
Anybody else?
Hi, Dennis Zakaropoulos. I moved to Norwalk from the city about 5 years ago. And I would like to ask about externalities. Let's assume that everything goes as planned insofar as use is concerned, that it's regulated, kids don't get it and all of that. But what if you live in an apartment building and you get a waft through the floors and then your clothes smell like pot? Suppose you walk in the street in certain areas and there is a lot of environmental smoke odor. And I understand that one cannot perhaps regulate smell. I mean, our neighbors cook and we get smells, but somehow that can be an issue also. So is there anything there, I mean, that one can do, manage it? Will users be trained to respect their neighbors the way we will respect them? Because I mean, I'm not against the concept of legalizing a lot of drugs. It controls a lot of things. I mean, the law was passed for a good reason. But good things also sometimes have consequences that also need management to maintain civility and good relations. So I would like a comment on that and answer it, if you please. Sure. Thanks.
I can respond to that. So as part of some of the statewide work, it's not just about, I highlighted priorities, but we recognize that there are a lot of folks within Connecticut that are living within apartment buildings. So it's how can we best reach out to associations and ensure that they understand kind of what the laws are, as well as we're in kind of the second phase. We kind of regenerate our campaign and the website every year to really correspond with legislation. So we're also in development, and we'd love to develop a toolkit specifically for those that are in a capacity to rent. Because we want to not only ensure that people understand what can and cannot happen, especially in a multi-person housing space, but also other pieces related to signage at playgrounds, in apartment buildings, making sure that people recognize that there are designated spaces for use, and to continue to do that public education.
The designated space was the address that was mentioned at the beginning. There was a public space, and that would be presumably one of the types of places that one can go and smoke. But
That's
not
the only
necessarily
public
everywhere.
place. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Sure. It's the Art Park, which is on West Ave. Chief, could you speak to maybe quickly what public consumption outside of that, if you witness it or what happens?
Yeah, you could be cited with $50 per violation for outdoor in-purpose in the area where it's not permissible.
And again, if anybody is attending via Zoom, if you want to ask a question or have a comment, just use the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen. Sure, if you want.
Hello, my name is Jeff Santo. I'm the webmaster for rockingrecovery.org. And I was just curious, an event that happened in Connecticut back in 2018, there was a 36-hour period when more than 100 people were transported to the hospital off New Haven Green because of what we believe was tainted K2. Now, when we have a new product being brought onto the market that was previously illegal, now more people are probably apt to try it, and it is highly likely that an event like that can happen again. Did Demas learn anything from that event? And does Norwalk have a protocol in place if we do have to triage a situation like that?
So I can't specifically speak on behalf of the full Demas agency as prevention and health promotion, but I'm happy to take this conversation offline and to get you in contact with other folks that can answer that question.
Thank you.
Maybe Dennis or Michael, can you talk about your product versus something you might get elsewhere?
Again, all product that we would bring in is going to be tested through the state regulations, state testing facilities, or the labs that are certified by the state. I know from Shangri-La and our other state operations, if there is a company that has any sort of bad reputation, known issues with product mold, other problems, I will not buy from them.
For Connecticut right now, there's only 4 licensed growers at this time, and we're only allowed to purchase from those 4 licensed growers. And they are regulated by DCP. They are laboratory tested for any sort of toxins or heavy metals or contaminants, bacteria or mold. So the products that we're getting, we can feel much more confident about their safety versus unregulated products that might be out in the community.
Well, I wasn't really worried about what you guys are going to have in your shop. I'm sure that would be thoroughly tested. But even before it was legal, I kind of saw it around the community here and there. So if there's a way to get it into the community and we have this substance, which is now legalized, if someone brings it to one party and they do have a tainted batch that didn't come from either one of your dispensaries, we may have a problem. And I just wanted to make sure that we're prepared and thinking about problems like that should they arise. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan McDonald. I have just some nuts and bolts questions about probably for law enforcement, but if there anybody else with authority who knows like the real answer, not just, guessing, no offense, but I'm not concerned about the dispensaries. I'm concerned about how people interpret what's right and allowed and how the volume of people that might, utilize marijuana in whatever forms, cannabis, I guess we're calling it, is people come up with all sorts of creative ways to either get around things or do things that they think are legal because that's the way they interpret it. I happen to be asking questions from a landlord's perspective. And also, I wish there was somebody here from the ADA, but I imagine there's plenty of people with knowledge about what the ADA will allow. For example, what if somebody has, I know you can have 3 pot plants in your house, but what if it's 4? Does that mean that as a landlord, it could be like, hey, come on over here, police, you have to take a look at the, so also can I walk through the neighborhood? Can people sit in their car and smoke? Is it just smoking that's the issue, smoking marijuana, or can you consume edibles or whatever other forms they are sitting in your car? Do the keys have to be out of the ignition? I did read the thing on the Be in the Know website saying it has to be locked in a bag and in the glove box or in the back. So I got that, but then there's all sorts of nuances to exactly how, because lots of people drive around neighborhoods, other people's neighborhoods, and sit just to smoke in the morning to do whatever they need to set up for the day. I have no problem with people using whatever they need to that's legal to calm their anxiety or whatever needs to happen medically, but I also want to know, so I don't infringe on other people's rights, to be able to, advise others like, yeah, you can't do that in this neighborhood, and really be accurate about it and not just be like that, that, what do we call them? That Karen who's in the street just trying to find problems with everybody. Thanks.
Yes, there was 2 laws, that just enacted October 1st. Odor of cannabis or burnt cannabis shall not constitute in part or in whole probable cause or reasonable suspicion and shall not be used as basis to support any stop or search of a person or motor vehicle. And secondly, observation of an operator or passenger smoking cannabis in motor vehicle while it is being operated alone is insufficient reason to stop the vehicle. These are new legislation that has been passed and enacted October 1st. So when cases like that, if the officers investigate a car accident, or you get stopped for speeding or some other second violation, and they do believe, based on their field testing, that that person is operating under the influence, they'll call it DRE, drug recognition expert is especially trained to read the physiological responses based on a series of tests. And based on his training experience, they could place that person on arrest if they fail that test.
I'd like to just add on that the situations that you just described are where the policy gets tricky in implementation, right? And so I think Danique was talking about signage, and that's something we've been looking at a lot with the Norwalk Partnership Coalition. Right now, we actually have an effort going on to talk to restaurant and bar managers and like what issues are coming up on your location, because are staff using at work, and do you know what to say and do? And we heard about a case where patrons in an establishment here in town were kind of getting into an argument about, you can do that, no, you can't do that, and is it the server's job, and is it the restaurant owner's job? And so this is where a lot of times I think having clear signage around town in the bars and restaurants, at the parks, where whoever sees something going on can just point, it's not on you, you're not the Karen, you point and you go, you're not supposed to do this here. We don't want to make the bartender have to deal with that. We don't want to make all these like folks that are maybe not even being paid a lot, part of their job. So that is something we really want to look at and take seriously as a city. The chief just pointed to some of the real tricky situations around DUIs, right? I mean, we know perfectly well that there are people who drink and drive, and there are people who, get high and get stoned and drive. And this law makes it a lot, or Connecticut is not treating cannabis law and policy the way it treats alcohol, right? So we have these differences. It's like, you can't, I can't go out there and drive while I've got an open beer, but I can have weed in the car. And so I think this is what we're going to see, the enforcement challenges around how do we just keep our streets safe? And some piece of that is also the education around, if you're using weed, do you know how long you should wait before getting behind the wheel? Like, do you all know how long you're supposed to wait? Like, I think that's one of those educational pieces, right? The Department of Transportation in Colorado, which legalized it first, now says 6 to 8 hours before you drive. That kind of means like, if you go out to a party, you better get a ride home, right? So these are things we have to look at. And you're talking about neighborhood challenges, and I'm listening to you, I'm listening to Chief, and I'm thinking like some of that is not very resolvable in the landlord situation. I'm not sure if you're talking as a landlord of like a private like home versus apartment buildings, but the apartment building thing is something we do have to really look at. And we have teens involved in our work. We have the Norwalk Strong Clubs at both high schools. They're super active. They organize the teen nights out, substance-free social activities and so forth. And I drive these kids around and I drop them off, and they're like, I don't like to go into my apartment building because it smells like weed all the time. And there's like one of our kids is pretty much active every day after school in everything you can think of to not go back to the house, right? You shouldn't have to, like the gentleman who was talking about the secondhand smoke, that shouldn't have to be a factor for the people who don't want it in their family, right?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Balliet. I'm a mom of 3 in Norwalk. I say mom of 3, but 2 of them are out of the house in college. But I do have one in Norwalk Public Schools who is concerned about the dispensaries coming here. I did have a question for the chief. I'm sure you speak with other departments throughout the state, towns and cities, and I was just wondering if you have any specific concerns or anything that you're going to watch out for that you may have heard from those other departments, and how your staff feels, if they're nervous or they're just prepared day to day.
Our biggest concern right now is identifying the bad actors in town that are selling marijuana, thinking that the messaging is that they could sell marijuana out of any retail space in the city of Norwalk. We've had to do 10 to 12 operations in the past 18 months, identifying a few shops that we've been identified and actually arrested the management several times. So out of this whole initiative, that's probably our greatest area of concern right now, because there's vape shops and smoke shops all throughout the community that are selling marijuana over the counter. They're selling edibles over the counter, and our investigators have received information. They conduct an investigation. They legally get search warrants or arrest warrants. And when we execute these search warrants, and they're coming up with pounds of marijuana and cases of edibles and stuff like that. So that is probably our biggest issue right now within the past 18 months to 2 years with the legalization of cannabis. And when it comes to DUI and DRE, we put a lot of training into our officers right now. Certifying a DRE is a rather lengthy process because it takes 4 to 6 weeks. We have to ship them out of state, and it's a certification that takes a lot of human testing because you're not relying on a machine like you are with blood alcohol examinations. You're using your training and observations of another human being, and they're filling that test. So every single month, every single year, we're always increasing our training in regards to DRE, and then they're passing it on through different classrooms, our instructors.
I just want to comment that, Chief, you guys have done an amazing job at finding some of these bad actors. And I feel like in the newspaper every week, you've busted someone who's selling to minors or selling illegally. And so I want to give you the opportunity to tell people that how they can report if they see something. I mean, we saw people at a yoga shop selling edibles. Who would think that at a yoga shop, they'd be selling THC edibles, right? So people can let you know. There's an anonymous line, right?
The best way is if you go to your app store on Android or iOS, use the Norwalk Police app, and you could communicate with us. I get text messages, and the administration gets text messages, and our communications, Norwalk Combined Dispatch gets all the text messages, and people send us information. You could send us photos. It's just like texting, and it's completely anonymous. It goes through servers, so on the back end, none of your information is identified, and we get a lot of good information. We get pictures, we get videos. It's a great app.
The other piece, because you mentioned before the new laws that went into effect this weekend, and one of them was around hemp products and what they call high THC hemp. So there's a huge category of kind of gray area products that were on the market, like THC 0 and Delta 9 and Delta 10 and all these products that were out there. And as of this past weekend, the law got really tightened through advocacy from folks saying, here are all these things, people don't know if they can or can't sell them, if they can or can't use them. Is it dangerous for kids or not? So there's a big category of stuff that is now clearly illegal, and you may see it in your gas station. So if you do, you should, report it, and the police can take care of that. I will just add that I did a Q&A with a bunch of teens at the Youth Business Initiative a couple months ago, and just said, write all your questions about marijuana and vaping on stickies, and we'll go through them one by one. My favorite question was, is gas station weed safe? Which I kind of feel like should answer itself, right? Oh no, but that's kids here in Norwalk apparently seeing weed at the gas station going, wonder if. So just bring that back to your own family if you have kids and have a conversation.
Larry, was there somebody I saw a hand raised? We'll let this gentleman go, and then we have somebody online.
Thank you, Mayor Reeling, for having this together and all you here to participate in the forum. My name is Joe Dudek. I'm the Executive Director for Help for Kids, the Exchange Club Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse here in Fairfield County. We serve Norwalk, all of Fairfield County. We provide support and education services to families in order to help them provide a safe, loving, caring environment to raise their children in. My question is to all of you and to the mayor, whether or not there'll be any education information available at dispensaries to educate parents on how lethal THC can be, particularly to infants. Not to put it in the same category, obviously, fentanyl. Fentanyl is a whole different category. But last year in the state of Connecticut, we had something like a dozen overdoses of children due to accidental fentanyl overdose. Certainly, this is not something we want to see with marijuana. And granted, it's different, but there's different potencies, right? There's just flour, there's oil, there's all different products that can fall from a table or can be picked up from an infant or a child on their hands, lick their hands, and have unfortunate consequences. So whether it be a question or a statement, I believe that there should be educational information at the dispensaries so parents understand, for adults to understand, not just parents, but all adults to understand the effect that THC can have on children, particularly young children, but children of all ages. And to make sure that this is a safe environment in their home when they take this product home. And so therefore, everyone is doing their part to make Norwalk a safe community for children, even in the presence of recreational marijuana. So if that is not part of your plan, I certainly will volunteer myself and my agency to help you provide these informational documents and maybe a PSA through our local media in order to make people really understand how detrimental this can be to children. So thank you very much.
Michael or Dennis, is that something you guys have had in your other facilities or something you consider here?
Yeah, so in my time working in the cannabis industry in multiple companies, we have always set up a Cannabis 101 training for the public. So again, I have not built that out specifically for Norwalk or Connecticut operations. However, I have done that in our other states, and then in my previous companies, we've done that Cannabis 101 for the public outreach.
I guess I just want to highlight a specific audience for the Be in the Know campaign is really related to pregnant, chest and breastfeeding people. So we and I think especially as a mother, I want to ensure that I'm able to have those developmentally appropriate conversations with my young people. But I think that that is the case for a lot of parents. So we are in the development of our phase 2 of the campaign. That is already something that is high priority for us with these toolkits, not only about a toolkit specifically for parents with tips, conversation starters that go across kind of the bracket of young person, but also how can we also strengthen the relationship that we have with the Association of Pediatrics so that we're not just having parents equipped, but we're able to also provide that valuable information and resource to those that are seeing them within the healthcare setting.
I just want to mention that the signage at retail locations around, Dennis and I were talking about like pregnant and parenting women, like, the fact that we do need to educate people. Cannabis is in breast milk, it crosses the placental barrier, et cetera. So our coalition has actually already identified a flyer from SAMHSA, from the federal government, that we really like, that has just the basic info about like, what the issues can be for pregnant women and for kids. And we've translated into Spanish, and we would love to, Joe Dudek's point, to provide it to your retailers if you would be willing to put that available on site. Got it ready to go.
Absolutely. And when we do have our consultations with consumers, especially those that are new to cannabis, it's an important part of our kind of onboarding with new customers and new patients to talk about responsible usage, storage, and disposal of cannabis as well, because it can be accessed through trash if you're not disposing it correctly. But having it in a place where it's unreachable by children, having it locked in a safe spot, also keeping it in the container that it comes in, which is child resistant, will help prevent some of those accidental usages and access. But to your point, Margaret, yes, we would love to have some sort of coordination to have some of that signage up so that we can make it more publicized and bring it to top of mind.
Fantastic. You too, Mike?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Remotely, we have Romney Donald, if you can unmute.
Hi, everyone. How are you? So I just want to say thank you for putting this meeting together. I am also a parent of a child in Norwalk Public Schools, and therefore I have a vested interest in the topic that's being discussed today. One thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that, according to the ACLU, there's a troubling statistic that Black individuals are 3.73 times more likely than their white counterparts to be arrested for marijuana-related offenses. This is a statistic that highlights a clear racial bias, which unfortunately extends to other areas of law enforcement. So I'm just curious if there will be an opportunity to delve deeper into the testing and training procedures that the chief had mentioned in context to bringing in a specialist for testing upon someone's like suspected idea that maybe someone's using or has too many plants or being pulled over and adding on a charge. So if that could be spoken to, that'd be great.
Thank you. The Norwalk Police Department is a CALEA accredited agency, and we pride ourselves on bias-free policing. We do a lot of implicit bias training. We do a lot of training in regards to proper procedures and the proper justice in regards to all the law that we do every single, law enforcement that we do every single day. A lot of the enforcement angle has been taken out of marijuana, has been taken out of the police hands with the legalization of cannabis. And I know that you've noted data from previously, but a lot of the enforcement angle has been taken out of the police department's hands. So on a local law enforcement angle, we don't have the right to stop. We don't have the right to identify. Most of our enforcement when it comes to DUI consumption and operation will be after a car accident is investigated and the officer is dealing with the operator and sees indicators that, or if they go through a red light, or if they go through some other violation, and they're identified as possibly being that. And in regards to the other enforcement, in regards to public consumption and things like that, those are city code infractions where simple warnings can be given and then enforcement can be taken in a progressive manner.
Okay, again, if anybody is virtual, you can raise your hand, use the raise your hand function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And anybody else that's in the audience here, please feel free to come on up.
I got a few things. One is, this is Chuck Edwards. He's a representative from Carolina who is against the pot, legalizing pot on a national level. And he indicates that in Oregon, 50% of drivers tested positive for THC. In Washington, fatalities more than doubled. In Colorado, 138% increases since legalization. One of the things that the community could be assured of that we're going to have more automobile accidents in our community. And I really don't know how to prevent that unless we can stop people from driving impaired. And one other thing, when it comes to the words that the media use, recreational, it just destroys my thinking that it's not really recreational till you get addicted to marijuana. And to make it sound like it's recreation. If you ever went to one of the places where people are trying to get off of marijuana and so forth, you can understand that. And secondhand smoke is another issue that I forgot to talk about. Is the secondhand smoke is not something that should be forced upon people. It shouldn't be that with their consent if they want to be in an area that's smoking, because of the fact that some people are in recovery, which may stimulate them to start back again. Also, I forgot what the other one was. But so the uses of the word recreational and dispensaries, one other question I have is why don't we sell marijuana in a pharmacy rather than open up dispensaries, so-called dispensaries?
Larry, I think we have another.
Yes, we have remotely Diana Toomey Wilson, if you can unmute. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I put in the Q&A my disappointment in the choice of location. The art park brings in families of all ages to celebrate creativity together. One of the gifts of the Norwalk creative community is that it is so welcoming for young people. And to then turn that space into a cannabis positive environment just seems wrong to me. I don't know why we can't do this closer to the quote recreational area, maybe in South Norwalk, closer to the police station, somewhere where we can have a bit more accountability for the way we roll this out into our community. But I'm very, very disappointed to hear that the art park will no longer be a family-friendly kind of place.
Thank you for that. I think we're about, unless there's somebody else's last question, I think we're going to let the panelists make any closing remarks that they'd like to make before we wrap up for the night. Anybody?
I guess just the final thing that I'll say is that schools are here to support families. We're a great starting point. We already have relationships with many families. So if your family and your children in particular are struggling and you self-report, we're going to offer you help. Obviously, when we come across situations in schools, there's varying levels, varying levels of products, varying levels of accountability that needs to be had. But if your family and especially your children are struggling, please reach out to the schools. We're connected with multiple agencies throughout the city and the state. So we want to be, a proactive partner in making sure this is done responsibly and keeping kids safe.
I just want to open up the opportunity to anyone to join the Norwalk Partnership if you are interested in preventing substance misuse, not just cannabis, but just keeping our kids safe, right? Promoting their mental wellness. The Norwalk Partnership is just open to any community member or agency. We have a lot of folks involved in lots of ways. We do everything from legislative forums to liquor stickers and signage and support groups and things like that. Just visit the website, thenorwalkpartnership.org, and follow us on social. And we have an info table out there. So grab resources and sign up on your way out. Thank you.
I deferred. I think that with that hopefully that this was an opportunity to talk about how community partners are coming together. And if you aren't already a part of the local efforts to prevent underage use, I strongly encourage you to be a part of it.
Again, as I and as we as Shangri-La, we are very excited to come in. I certainly understand many of the concerns I've heard from the community tonight, and us as a business front, we are here to work with the community, try and resolve or relieve some of those concerns as we can as just being the business front, but again, working with all of the community and the different resources out here you guys are providing. So thank you.
Don't have a whole lot much to add to any of that, but I do want to say that, I do respect your opinions and some of your thoughts and concerns around safety, and what I can commit on behalf of Fine Federal is to make sure that we're dispensing safely and responsibly and making sure that we are complying with all state rules and regulations. And I do appreciate you having us here today. It's been an honor being on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, looking forward to collaborating with this team to assure public safety in this new endeavor in the city of Norwalk with the retail sales of cannabis. And also, besides the law enforcement angle, the Norwalk Police Department does offer. We have partnered with the recovery. We do have 2 full-time social workers and clinicians that work out of our building. And we've also just recently partnered with Liberation, and they provide addiction recovery. So we do have civilian assistance and clinicians besides the law enforcement in a non-sworn capacity. But thank you.
Thank you for coming.